Hi everybody, how are you today? I hope all is well. And you know what? Today I'm really excited about this video. It's named The Spiritual Reality Behind Hormuz, where ancient idols and global empires collide. And if you know anything about me, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that I like to get into what's underneath it all, the spiritual meaning behind things, because the Bible tells us that we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. It is not as it appears, right? So we have to be able to look under the surface at things. And this is another situation where we need to look under the surface and look at the spiritual component of this. But the profound historical, physical, and spiritual layers of the Strait of Hormuz demonstrate that there is so much more. Okay, this whole situation is about so much more than a modern economic bottleneck, right? For thousands of years, it has been known to be a spiritual place that needed to actually be protected from demons who cause chaos. So, it's always been a critical place where spiritual forces and modern global empires collide. This is nothing new, but it's ultimately setting the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. And I think that's, what's most important here. Sorry, I have to spray my cat. But this cat is really bad. It's an area that has the potential to fulfill the seals of Revelation and play a part in Ezekiel 38. And also, there are some that believe that it fulfills Isaiah chapter 13. So it's an area of profound significance for Christians and Jews alike. So if you remember a few months ago, I did a video called Is the Strait of Hormuz in Bible prophecy? And you can go back and watch that if you're interested, but it really goes over a 16th century rabbi who wrote about, he wrote a commentary on the book of Isaiah titled Klippas. In his comments regarding the final war, the war of Ezekiel 38, he wrote that the focal point of the last days conflict would take place in a region he called the land of Hormuz, situated between the boundaries of Assyria and Persia. Sorry, I had a squirter. She's being really bad. Anyway, even the name's origin, Hormuz, has spiritual meaning. It was directly derived from a Zoroastrian god named Ahura Mazda, the supreme wise Lord. For millennia, Zoroastrian rulers viewed the strait as a gateway. It was a gateway. And they believed that it was their obligation to protect this gateway from territorial demons that weaponized these choke points. These demons were known as Devas. They were thought to create a cosmic chaos in the strait. And they kind of had the same hierarchy as we do in Christianity, because they had like these demons and they served this leader, the big guy, kind of like, Satan has his minions or flying monkeys to serve him. But this leader of theirs, this demonic leader, was a leader of absolute destruction named Angra Mainyu. One of the demons believed to negatively impact the strait, named Druge, was a demoness of the lie. Interesting, right? It distorts truth by seeding geopolitical deception, false narratives, and artificial crisis to disrupt peaceful global trade. Beside her, though, stalks another demon named Ashma, the deity of destruction. She is a demon full of wrath and fury, an unchecked bloodlust who acts to suddenly trigger these maritime wars. She chokes human reason and drives empires toward military aggression. Now, I'm not saying that I agree that, in this religion, okay? But what I do think is there are demons that do these things, right? Even though this is based on a false religion, obviously, and idolatry, there are demons that do these things. So it's an interesting parallel, I guess. But Zoroastrians believed it was their sacred duty to serve their god, Ahura Mazda, a god of truth and order and cosmic harmony. And how they served that god was by opposing these evil demons through using their naval power to protect the peaceful flow of global trade through this strait. So they had to defend the strait against the demons of chaos. That was the idea. And to do that, one of the things that they did was they actually lined the straits cliffs with these fire temples. And these fire temples not only defended against these demons of chaos, but they also served as lighthouses for sailors maintaining order and harmony, which, if you have lighthouses, it's just a natural thing that they're not going to hit each other, so you're not going to have chaos, right? But, anyway, so as a matter of interest, okay, I found this really interesting. Following the 7th century Arab Islamic conquest, many Zoroastrians fled through this exact strait to India, forming the Parsi community, which later produced globally recognized figures like Freddie Mercury. And of course, today we have a modern automotive brand called Mazda, which was named after this ancient deity. Okay, so it's named after an idol. The cat is doing bad things again. Sorry. She's getting my camera, or my phone actually. But anyways, sorry if I have to keep fighting with her. Some days she gets a little bit crazy. But anyway, not only is there a great deal of demonic activity in this area, but its physical structure as a choke point draws spiritual meaning as well. In biblical Hebrew, the word for a narrow constriction or distress is Mitzrayim, the exact name used for Egypt. And I did practice that because I'm not good at pronouncing many of these things. So forgive me if they're not accurate. But just as ancient Egypt was a narrow 12-mile wide strip of green land constricted by these harsh deserts, that actually it trapped the Israelites in Egypt. Where were they going to go, right? But the Strait of Hormuz also acts as a physical squeezing point, just as Egypt did for the Israelites. It holds our global economy captive to materialism and oil. These are the types of places, though, that God likes to use in the world, on the world stage, and in our personal lives. He likes to use these places, narrow and high-stakes geographic choke points and the wilderness, right, as a place to break human pride, to judge, to expose global vulnerabilities, and even orchestrate miracles. That's how God works. He uses these areas. So today's Iranian Kharg Island acts as the literal economic spigot for Iran. It handles roughly 90% of Iran's crude oil. And I know that most of us have heard about Kharg Island. It is one of the places that the U.S. was talking about capturing. And it is a big deal for them in Iran. And that's why, because it's their spigot for oil. But there's much more to that ancient island spiritually than most of us know, because Kharg Island was known as the ancient city of the dead. In Zoroastrian theology, it dictated that the sacred elements, earth, water, and fire, that they could not be contaminated by decaying matter. So what they did was, you know, the people in the coastal communities, they couldn't bury their dead because it would defile the land or the water, and, you know. So they would take their dead to this island, to Kharg Island, and they would allow, you know, birds to basically decompose the bodies as they laid on rocks. And once there was nothing left but bones, then they would put them in these areas because they were considered clean. But the spiritual significance behind this global choke point, it's been visible for thousands of years. Thousands of years. This isn't anything new. While the identity of the strait has been entirely rewritten over these thousands of years, from a waterway of cosmic harmony to a weapon of revolutionary resistance, it is far more than a modern economic bottleneck. Whether operated as a gateway of modern Zoroastrian order, a weapon of revolutionary Islamic resistance, or a hostage to the materialistic greed of Mystery Babylon, these systems are merely worldly symptoms of a much deeper, unseen reality. It reminds us that ultimately history is not driven by the flow of barrels of oil, but by the unbending blueprint of divine prophecy. As the God of this world and the God of all things will finish this battle. The physical choke points of the earth will yield their true purpose. The final dramatic stage where all of these false idols will collide and the absolute sovereignty of the true God will forever be established. Amen. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. I really do. I found it fascinating. And there's so much more that you could learn about, you know, the Strait of Hormuz and Kharg Island, you know. Even the fact that the Magi, you know, that many believe that they were Zoroastrians because they studied stars. Fascinating, isn't it? But anyway, I will see you all next week. And I do hope that you have, there goes my cat again. I do hope that you have a really nice weekend and that, you know, God blesses you. And I will see you next week. Bye.